Let's unpack those numbers now with Gary Boyson, who joins us from Rand Swiss. Gary, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I suppose we can start with the local markets, a performance we saw there. The JSE almost ending the day about 2.9% in the green. Broad-based gains across most of the board. What did you make of today's movements, and did we have any global catalysts that weighed in here?
I think one of the global catalysts is certainly the US earnings season that is starting up at the moment. So we've seen some of the big US banks reporting, and while they are reporting a decline in earnings, the declines are not as much as people expected. And I think if we get a strong earnings season out of the US, that could do a lot to patch up some of the global sentiment that we've seen. At the moment, what that's essentially doing is it has created a slightly weaker dollar. This is also just, I think, a moderation of some of the more hawkish expectations after the US CPI numbers last Wednesday. But with a weaker dollar, that's helped to just light a fire under the resource sector. So we had our resource sector up over 4.5%, and that was being led higher by the likes of Exara up 7.2%, Kumba up 5.32%, and Anglo-American, that is up 5.2%. So it was all about resources today. Industrials also did very, very well, up around 3%, but we'll take it when we can get it. In the kind of markets we've seen in the first half of this year, any green day is a good day.
Indeed it is. Let's talk about the euro dollar ahead of the ECB decision being announced. It's currently, I wanted to say that it's almost in parity with the rand, because we're sitting at 17.14 against the US dollar. And the euro against the rand is about 17.33. But your thoughts on the euro weakness that we've been seeing and what's likely to happen following that decision?
I would be very happy to see the euro in parity to the rand, but yes, I mean we've almost seen euro dollar, or we did see euro dollar parity last week, where we had one euro equaling $1, and you can just see in the underlying rates today with the euro, as you said, at 17.37 currently on my screen anyway. You've seen that the euro just pulled back a little bit, so it's gaining a little bit of strength against that dollar, just into that softer dollar environment that we were talking about earlier. Now, the expectation is, when we have the ECB announcement out on Thursday, the expectation is for interest rates in the Eurozone to rise by 25 basis points, so 0.25%. And that'll be the first time that we've seen an interest rate increase in the Eurozone since 2011. So it's been a long time since we've seen interest rates actually rising there. I think the interesting point that we're going to look out for in the meeting is the idea that the ECB might announce what's called an anti-fragmentation tool. Now, we don't know what that's going to look like, but I think there's real concern that the debt in the periphery of Europe, so the likes of Greece and Italy, is far more substantial than in places like Germany. And what that's creating is a heavier burden on those peripheral countries. So there's speculation that there might be some sort of announcement, just to try and moderate the impact of higher interest rates on the Eurozone periphery. And I think that's definitely going to be an interesting point to watch in the meeting, but also how currencies and how underlying markets react to what is going to be the first interest rate hike in over a decade.
Let's talk a little bit about company updates, Gary. Let's start with Telkom and MTN. MTN announcing on Friday that it intends to scoop up Telkom. That share price doing really well, actually soaring on the trading day. They haven't really given much detail in terms of the nitty-gritties of this acquisition, but what would you say about it?
Well, I think the first thing that anyone that's heard that deal will think is, how are they going to get this through the regulator? So already, if you look at what Akasa has said about the prominent players, MTN and Vodacom in the segment, they say they have significant market power. To try and get this through the competition authorities, I think, is also going to be very, very difficult. That said, they've kind of indicated that they are interested in 100% of Telkom, that is MTN, and it could be done via a shares and cash deal or an all-share deal. But my sense is that there's still a long path to walk on this deal, and I think what's ultimately going to happen is you're going to see maybe parts of Telkom moving into MTN, and I think what MTN is really eyeing is that fiber business. I think they're looking at the fiber assets within Telkom, and that's really the crown jewel. And we might see the mobile business, so Telkom Mobile, being spun out and potentially staying as a separate company. There are obviously also the concerns that with the government owning between its direct holding and the PIC ownership around 55% of Telkom. Are they in favor of a deal like this, and what kind of almost political message and political negotiations are going on behind the scenes? I think that's really where we are at the moment. But it's, like I said, still a long path to walk, and we'll see if this deal manages to get done.
We will indeed. Gary Boyson, as always, thank you very much for joining us. He's from Rand Swiss there. I was hoping we could touch on the fact that Tongaat has asked to be suspended temporarily on the JSE so that it could deal with its restructuring, a really, really bad money situation in that company that they're trying to fix, and they think they can do that by getting suspended, or their listing getting suspended on the JSE. That's your business news for now. Sally will be back with more updates in the next bulletin. It looks like that SARS strike is getting worse, especially around the tax revenue collection that's supposed to be happening in the country. So we'll unpack those details.
And that's one thing our fiscal absolutely is reliant on, that we have efficient tax collection. So it's